Hola a todos! I'm going to be explaining direct and indirect object pronouns in este video. Grammar can always be a tricky topic, so hopefully this video covers object pronouns quite concisely. So first let's start off with direct object pronouns. The first thing you need to know is that these replace nouns. I'm going to write DOPs, direct object pronouns, replace nouns in sentences. Then let's go through what the direct object pronouns actually are. So for the I form, it's me, then we have te, then we have two here. We have lo for masculine singular and la for feminine singular. Nos, os, and then lastly los for masculine plural and then las for feminine plural. The most common ones, and the ones we're going to see in these examples in a minute, is lo and la and los and las. So there's three places where these can go. Firstly is before conjugated verbs. And let's look at some examples. So let's imagine someone is asking, ¿Dónde hay el libro? So where is the book? So let's say there's some dialogue and someone's asking, where is the book? We can reply by saying, for example, Pedro, just being a character, Pedro tiene el libro. And that's correct, right? Pedro has the book. Fine. But what we can do, instead of repeating el libro twice in really close proximity, we know what we're talking about. We're talking about el libro. We don't need to repeat this again. So we can replace it by saying it. And this it is going to be lo. So we can say Pedro lo tiene. So instead of el libro, we're using it, lo, and this goes here. So Pedro lo tiene. Pedro has it. And this lo just means it. So I'm going to make a note here. Direct object pronouns like lo can be translated as it. And the reason I've chosen lo for this sentence is because el libro is masculine and singular. So lo is masculine singular, la is feminine singular. So if we had, for example, la mesa being a feminine singular noun, then we would say Pedro la tiene. Okay? And then los is for plural, masculine plural, and las is for a feminine plural. Let's do a couple more examples. So still having the direct object pronoun before conjugated verbs, let's say the sentence me encantan las redes sociales. So I love social media. This is plural feminine, isn't it? And then in a second sentence we can say uso las redes sociales mucho. Vale, so I use social media a lot. Now again, you can see we've already repeated las redes sociales twice, right? And there is no reason that we need to. So what we can do, we can remove the second las redes sociales and replace it with the direct object pronoun, so las. So I can say las uso mucho. So I use them. So here the las is going to be them a lot. And of course, this works in different tenses as well. So, and this works in the present tense, the imperfect tense, all the different tenses the exact same way. So, and this works in different tenses as well. Let's have a look at this in the present tense. Let's say Pablo, another character, limpio, cleaned, limpio, la mesa. So in this case, we have to, because there's only one sentence, we can assume before in this text, in this sentence, they've mentioned la mesa. So if you then go another sentence saying Pablo limpio la mesa, you've already mentioned la mesa earlier on somewhere. I'm not going to write a whole example there, but just imagine in the text it's been mentioned before. So now we need to use it. We need to replace this la mesa with la. So we can say Pablo la limpia, or la limpio, sorry. So Pablo, la is just it again, limpio. So it's very important the position of this la as well. It goes before the conjugated verb in this sort of scenario here. So Pablo la limpio. We can't say la Pablo limpio or Pablo limpio la. It has to be Pablo la limpio. Okay, let's look at another placement. There's three in total. First was before conjugated verbs. Secondly, the DOP, the direct object pronoun, can be attached to the end of the infinitive. So, for example, Let's have a sentence about, and here the noun's going to be los deberes, the homework. So let's say it's already been mentioned earlier, and the second sentence is mis amigos tienen que hacer los deberes. So here we can replace the noun. Again, this is what we're doing in this with direct object pronouns, replacing the noun. Los deberes with just them or it. So for example, my friends have to do it or have to do them as in complete the homework, right? So here, as we've done before, we get rid of los deberes, and the which one pronoun we're going to use, it's going to be los because it's masculine singular. And what it says here, the direct object pronoun can be attached to the end of the infinitives. So this los, in fact, can just go here, hacer los. So mis amigos tienen que hacerlos. My friends have to do them or it, whatever would make sense in English. And that's the whole sentence. Mis amigos tienen que hacerlos. And earlier on, you'd have to mention los deberes, so the audience and the reader knows what's being mentioned here. But instead of repeating los deberes twice in like two sentences, we just say it or them. Now, this works similarly for the case of people. So, for people, we can say as an example, quiero ver a, and then just name of someone Pablo, let's say. So, I want to see Pablo. So, same thing here. Let's get rid of the a Pablo. The noun of the sentence is Pablo, the object. Let's get rid of that. And we can say lo because it's masculine singular. Same as always, the lo can go here after the ver, so we can say quiero verlo. However, just a point, if we say, you may see sometimes, quiero verle. This is using an indirect object pronoun, and this is technically incorrect. So quite often in Spain, you're going to see verle versus in Latin America, you're going to see verlo. However, verlo is the only actual correct, is only correct here. Verle is not correct. This is called leísmo. So for people, we can still say, same way, quiero verlo is correct and verle is not as correct, but it's still common. You'd hear it in speech and stuff. But if you want to learn the correct grammar, we'd say verlo. Vale? Then, moving on to our third and final example of where our direct object pronoun can go. I'm going to write dop. Again, direct object pronoun can be, this time, attached to the end of a gerund. So just like we saw the end of the infinitive, the gerund is a word ending in ing in English. So for example, we have like hablando as an example of a gerund. There's words ending in ando or yendo. So let's always, as always, give an example. Esta. So we can say, for example, ella está, or él being he, él está, estudiando el inglés. So as always, we get rid of the el inglés. We've already mentioned it earlier in the text. We can just in this example just assume we have, just act as if we have, and replace this with lo because masculine singular, el being masculine singular. So está estudiando. This lo, as it says here, can be attached to the end of the gerund. So está estudiando lo. And the only difference here is if there's always going to be a vowel before the a and d o bit. So whether it's yendo, in which case there's still a vowel e, we're going to have an accent on this E and this A. So estudiándolo. Okay? Or if, for example, comiendo, if we say, it would just be comiendo, and then lo, we have the accent above the E there. Now I'm going to give you one final example before we move on to the other section, which is indirect object pronouns. So, in red again. In English, we're going to say, I'm going to write it in English first. It's just a longer example here. So the teacher gave homework to my children. Vale? So first we're going to translate this without using any pronouns, just translate it so word for word. Let's do this in blue. So el profesor, I'm going to just act as if it's masculine. El profesor dio los deberes a mis hijos, I'm going to use for children. Vale? Not much space here left, but what can we do now? We can get rid of los deberes being the noun and replace it with los. So el profesor los dio a mis hijos, gave it to my children. So the teacher gave it to my children, it being homework. Okay, now to go on to the other side, which is indirect object pronouns, let me tell you what these do. So Let's use the acronym IOP, indirect object pronouns. Replace, let's think of replacing again. So the direct object pronouns replace nouns. In this case, IOPs, indirect object pronouns, replace to who, or I guess I shouldn't put apostrophes there. So to who or for who the verb, let's say the verb is done. I will give you an example in just a second. First is actually filling this table of what the indirect object pronouns are. They're really similar to the direct object pronoun ones. They're the same mostly. So me to start off with, then te. Here we have le. So if you recall, we had lo and la in the direct object. Here we have just le, one word le. Nos and os is the same. And here we have less. And if you recall the direct ones, we have los and las. So the main difference again is le and less, and these are the most common ones as well. So let's practice with an example. And there's not as many like places where these can go. So these just go one place, and that is before the verb. Let's do it in blue as we did before. Before the verb or the conjugated verb. Okay. So for example, John, someone's name, escribió. He wrote in the present tense. Escribió una carta. Let's say a él. So to him. So a él is just to him. Okay. I'm going to leave the una carta for the time being, so you can obviously change this because you can replace the noun as we have done before. Let's focus on the AL bit. So this is to who or for who the verb is done. So the verb is writing, it's done to him. Right, the writing letter is being done to him. This is the other person involved in the sentence. So we can replace cosa AL, and this time we're going to replace it with le. This is being a single someone, masculine or feminine, but a singular, right? So le. So where is this le going to go? We can't say John escribió una carta le. This le goes before the verb. John le escribió una carta, wrote a letter to him or for him, is what this le means. I'm going to rewrite that a bit nicely there. Okay? Something else you may notice is we can get rid of this una carta. Let's do that as well. So una carta becomes la using our direct object pronoun sort of rules and stuff. Where's this la going to go? This has to go directly before the verb. So this actually jumps in between here, and we end up with, if I rewrite it, John le la escribió. Okay, and we've gotten rid of the AL and the una carta. However, this is incorrect. This does not sound very nice. Le, la. That sounds clunky. We don't say that in Spanish. So there's a little trick. Whenever we have an indirect object pronoun and a direct object pronoun together, anything like le, lo, le, la, we get rid of. We change this le slightly. So this le becomes se. If we say, John se la escribió, that sounds correct. That is how we say that. Yeah, we just change this le into a se. So John se la escribió is technically saying John wrote it, so it's some feminine it, to them. Okay, let's try one more example before we wrap up using this one here. So at GCSE, you don't need to be able to construct sentences with both direct and indirect object pronouns in like one sentence, but it's helpful to be able to know how to recognize them if it comes up in reading, for example. So I'm going to just grab this one this way. So we have el profesor los dio a mis hijos. Let's get rid of a mis hijos. Let's rewrite it as well, actually. So as always, we can get rid of this a mis hijos in pink, and we can replace it with les, being the plural them. So el profesor les los dio. Les los dio. That sounds bad. So this les becomes se. So the little trick here is the fact that se is used to get rid of this pronunciation problem of les los. Together, two words beginning with L, we don't have that together. So we just say se los instead. Yeah? So el profesor, to write the final sentence, el profesor se los dio. And that's how these work. That's how these direct and indirect object pronouns work. I will rewrite some of this to make it look a bit nice, and you can download this page, this display if you want, or the mind map from astarspanish.com/grammar. And that's it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Adios!